Ladies and gentlemen, are we live? Yes, we are. We are live once again. This is your somewhat savvy, politically minded host, Abby Kaufman here. And it's a beautiful Tuesday, July 14th, here in our secret undisclosed location on Newport Harbor in Newport Beach, California. And there's a heat wave going on. And if you're sweating it out, let us know where you are. And just check in. The number is 949 629 3820. And in that case, we will go ahead and get the show started. I was going to play some little squeeze, but I didn't know how you guys would feel about a little squeeze, so I kind of kept it myself and played into it. So, guys, tomorrow we've got a real treat. We have Dan Rocco scheduled for an interview, and we'll tell you more about Dan as time goes on. And the what I kind of wanted to, despite everything that's going on in the world, I want to kind of start off with a little humorous headline I saw from the New York Times. And if the New York Times says it, it's true, right? And it says Dutch try to interest buyers in mountain of manure. And I thought, geez, we've got a mountain of manure here. We clearly make them a deal on. Just kind of haul the guy away, back your truck up to the White House, and we'll load him right in there, and we'll call it even. How about that? You've got your Apollo manure. We got rid of Apollo manure. Just sometimes the answers just come together. So anyway, let's as it's Tuesday and every California's most difficult decision is where to go for Taco Tuesday. I'm partial to Taco Mesa, but we'll see how things play out. But there's a few things we need to get down and chat about, and the first one is uh, what the judge in D.C. had to say about the $1.8 billion slush fund case, the one where Trump sued the IRS and the IRS settled for a couple $1 billion in immunity for life. And the judge was really, you know, federal judges don't mess around, and there may be a little local humor in various courtrooms, but not at that level. And when the judge says, "I find this no, there's no purpose, there's no adverse interest," what you guys are trying to do is fund something, and oh, isn't this a convenient way to fund it? And of course, what was being funded, and I use that word just kind of mean spiritedly, because he wanted to pay people that had attacked the Capitol on January 6th. And nobody in their right minds thinks that's proper or warranted. However, being in the right mind isn't necessarily a prerequisite to be president, is there? No, you can be a lunatic, and you can be rest assured that your party will stand behind you. At least when Biden was questionable, everybody started to raise questions. Trump is more than questionable at this point. Uh, I just to fall in behind this guy means that every Republican, and I mean every Republican, is tying his coattail or tying his tail to Donald Trump's kite. And you need to be really careful whose kite you tie your tail to. And everything is starting to come home to roost now. All the illegal immigration, uh, no, the illegal stops perpetrated by the Trump administration are just, what it amounts to is they are killing innocent people in the street. A government agency, think about this, is killing somebody in the street. What's so different about that than being in Russia and having a KGB agent blow somebody away? There's no differences there, and and therein lies the rub. Trump is a Putin wannabe, even though if he had any idea what was really going on, he wouldn't say that. But the guy's clearly not seeing things clearly. Uh, I think that's the mere fact that we're even chatting about it just shows how ludicrous things are. And of course, I don't know about you guys, but I cannot wait for the speech from the Oval Office is going to be that Trump's going to make on Thursday. I usually make an over under prediction, as to when he's going to go off the rails. And I usually give it around the 10-minute mark, but this could be wild. He's got Iran that's, should that his position is just a whopper, if you know what I mean. And I don't mean a Burger King whopper, I mean a whopper of a lie. And then what's he going to bookend it with? Of course, thought you never mentioned it. The 2020 conspiracy theory election. The more that he does this, the more distasteful he is, and to every American. Nobody believes him. Nobody trusts him anymore. I mean, how can you? How can anybody really put any sort of faith in Donald Trump's word? And guess what, guys? This takes us back to one of my favorite words: credibility. I think the Greek was credibilis or something, and it meant worthy of being believed. And I'm going to tie this into a an article in a bit. Uh, but yeah, worthy of being believed. In other words, when somebody tells you something, we all know people like this. There are certain people that when they tell you something, you can put that in the bank, right? But some people, when they tell you they'll do X, Y, and Z, you're like, yeah, right, pal. And I think we kind of know which side or what we're seeing. It's not like he's hiding it. I mean, and anyway, let's kind of leave it as such. I won't lecture about credibility today, but guys, I do. It is just so vitally important to when you listen to two sides of the argument or two sides of an argument, listen to both sides. See what side has the better facts and logic and reasoning, and it'll become apparent. And like I say, my favorite thing about this is as Trump and Stormy Daniels, or rather Stormy, and Stormy's on the witness stand, and the prosecutor saying something like, "And the defendant met you in this room." Yes. What color underwear did he have on? I'm paraphrasing this. Red underwear. Okay. Defendant there, red underwear. Did you happen to see his penis? Yes, I did. Well, did it have any distinguishing characteristics? And again, I'm paraphrasing, and she says something like, "Oh yeah, it hooks to the left." Okay, red underwear, penis hooks to the left, and she says, "We assume you engaged in, adult activities." Yes, we did. Okay, thank you. The stand knows how to be it. So Trump's got to give his version of the story to diffuse her side. So he could say something like, "I wasn't there. Even if I was there, I wasn't wear. I never wear red underwear. Even if I was there in red underwear, I never slept with her. Even if I was there, those pleading in the alternative just goes on and on and on." And so the judge says, "Thank you very much." And Trump gets excused, and so the jury goes back to the jury room with these two competing sides of the story, two witnesses, and they both have sworn to give a truthful testimony under oath, right? So the jurors go back in the jury room, and nobody really knows what's going back this if you've never been on a jury, and I've never been on a jury. I always get thrown off the jury. Uh, go figure. But anyway, so they're debating stories, and they like, who can we believe? Should we believe the president of the United States, or should we believe a porn actress? And as it turns out, the porn actress was telling the truth. They judged her to have the more persuasive story, the more persuasive evidence to show that this had happened. So you see, and it kind of came through in Iran. Trump would say something the Iranians have agreed to, and the Iranians go, "No, we didn't," or "We are doing this," and the Iranians go, "Uh." And my favorite was when he was going to do something, the Iranian said, "Hold the bus." Now, they didn't really say hold the bus, but you can well imagine they're not, they're winning in this deal. Trump can only lose, and he's too stupid to realize. Actually, he can only lose more. Um, yeah, I mean, at this rate, and I'm gonna tell you, I don't, I don't really like violence, and I really wish we didn't have to use it, and clearly we did not have to use it here. So it's just been a comedy of bad judgments, and and let's talk about making a judgment. Well, since I just kind of mentioned about credibility, and that thing about judge not and all that. Well, that's not what that really means, and I'm hardly a biblical scholar, but what that means is to not judge someone unfairly or harshly. We make decisions every day about who to have lunch with, who to work with, who to drink coffee with, and it's okay to do that. There are certain people we just don't want to associate with. That's fine. Um, but what I'm saying here is that the more Trump gets in front of people, the more they dislike him. And the more they dislike him, the more they will hold it against the Republicans in the midterms and 2028. Uh, and like I said, judgment. How do you render? How does somebody decide something? Well, it's not. I mean, we teach this to children. You define the problem, right? Then you look and see if there are what other people have done, and then you kind of study the problem, and maybe you've got a solution, or maybe not. What if we put this here, the support here? Well, no, that's going to strain this side. Okay, so we need to move it around, and you see, so these little sorts of fine-tuned judgments that people make are necessary to get to the decent result. If you don't move incrementally, you tend to have a ham-handed approach. And again, does that kind of remind you guys of anybody in particular? Um, but yeah, most people make judgments by doing a little research and a little thinking. And we've got someone in the White House who just whom I lovingly refer to as that orange tinged subhuman being occupying the White House. And you get these decisions that when you make decisions not based on facts, you usually make them based on fantasy, right? Because you kind of need facts. And Trump just makes it's beyond saying that he makes up his own world to live in, and people want to say he bends reality to conform to himself. And I'm going to suggest that he may try, but I'm going to also submit that's a zero sum game, and that he might be able to do it for a little while, but ultimately it's a zero sum game, and he never wins at it. But like I said, the notion of a involvement in foreign countries uh, was done pretty much on a whim, and that defines everything as well as the problem. When you do things on a whim and without any rhyme or reason, people don't know what to do. There's no certainty. People can't follow. And if there's one thing most people crave, it's certainty. Certainly, markets need certainty. Governments need stability. And let's just say that considering the hollowing out of the federal government, that Doge, Elon Musk, Trump, Vance, whoever, uh, after the way they hollowed out the government, of course, the foundation is weak, and that's where we are. His laws have so corrupted the foundation of the country. Now think about that. In what 10 years, he has corrupted 250 years of history. And how has he done that? He's our distinguishing characteristic, and the distinguishing characteristic of all democracies is the right to vote, the right to choose your leader, not to have handed down from generation to generation, not to have the leader be the last surviving of a big fight. And you don't have a leader who was born under during an eclipse, right? We have elections. We choose people, and we choose people honestly and fairly. Our elections are the gold standard. And as a matter of fact, they've been, I mean, God knows how many elections Jimmy Carter's tried to run. And why does Jimmy Carter try to run these things? Because people have asked him to come over and help run a clean and fair election. It's what we rest on. And, Trump's chipped away at that. And was there any specific purpose to that? No. The only purpose in that was to consolidate whatever uncertainty and use it as a wedge to drive people apart, such that Trump is free to, I can't say rape, pillage, and plunder, but you kind of get the idea. Okay, so the judge winds up in the IRS case saying this is essentially, she said, this is BS. You've got Trump, the president, the plaintiff suing the Trump's Treasury Department, the Internal Revenue Service, and so Trump is suing Trump. And then what's the guy in the middle doing? The guy in the middle says, "Well, I'll tell you what. How about if we just take 1.8 billion that is, and use that to as a financial compensation? And since you don't really need it, we'll give it to the people who were wrongfully imprisoned as a result of January 6th." Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all the ships at sea, if you took any bit of time to watch the congressional hearings, there's no doubt what happened. They investigated what happened on January 6th. They, if I'm not mistaken, every single one of their witnesses was a Republican. And this was hardly a hatchet job. Uh, and and the really wild thing is, you still have people like, I think there's Andy Ogles from Tennessee. I know there's Trump himself, who still contend that it's a fun day at the Capitol. And I just I've had people tell me they thought it was staged. I'm like, how can that be? And the truth of the matter is, some people are just idiots. Oh, there's to deny their intellectual differences and capabilities is to deny reality. We all know some people are smarter than others, and some people are taller than others, and some people are this than others. Uh, so just because you have another side of the argument doesn't mean it's an equal side, which is why, see, if it's an equal side, Trump would have walked after he says, "I never had sex with that woman." That's how he would defend himself. He wouldn't say, "I didn't have red underwear. It wasn't me. It wasn't red underwear. Uh, that wasn't my crooked penis. And even if I had a crooked penis, I was an exceptional performer in bed, and she would have remembered it," and so on and so forth. But you have, and degrees don't necessarily make someone educated. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you that as a general proposition, I admire, Wharton grads. Just, it's a good school. And anyway, but I think that when you go there under these circumstances that Trump went there, you will see that he was pretty much only way he got into Wharton was as a transfer from Cornell or upstate New York somewhere. And that's a perfectly valid way to get into a really good school. I wish I would have thought of that. Well, actually, I probably thought about it. I just didn't have the money to do it. But he just what did he say? What did he say? Like I say, he just can't rationally analyze a problem. And on top of that, even if he had the mental ability, which God knows he does, he doesn't have. He's got the attention span of a pistachio. I mean, well, let's see here. The attention span of a pistachio. Attention span of a pistachio. The backbone of a God knows what. The forked tongue that cannot speak the truth. The guy's he's a mess. And somehow, during the 2024 run up to the election, somehow, we had a choice between a decent human being and a monster. And you guys chose the monster. And look, and how, as a general proposition, how's that working out for you? As he gets ready to go on TV. And I can't wait to hear him explain how many ways we're winning in Iran. I mean, I got to tell you, I sat up late the other night trying to think of this. I mean, how many ways are we winning in Iran? And it sounded like we were kind of getting, I tell you, it still looks like we got bupkis. And I said, the only thing worse than bupkis is skadukas. And skadukas, one skadukas is 10 bupkises. So we are getting bupkis and skadukas and but you know what? That's not true. We're getting stuck with the big bad bill from all this because he already added 3.8 trillion to the deficit, and of course you know I still hear to this day what a shrewd businessman he is, and that's about when I pull out my 4-page document of certified bona fide Trump business failures. It just it's staggering. But the patterns are always the same with these guys. They buy something, they pile on the debt, and then they declare bankruptcy. So Trump kind of got to the stage, right? He ran up the debt, 10% on his own, 3.8 trillion. Now, what do you think is going to happen? You think he's just going to kind of vamoose? You'd have to think so. Or at least he's trying to get his money to vamoose. I mean, how you make that? And aren't we so glad we're seeing some of the scams exposed? Now, just because they're exposed doesn't mean the people that are supposed to see them. But my favorite was my personal favorite was the Trump meme coin, and all this cyber money, or whatever you want to call it, is I mean I you can't touch it. I don't. I mean, I guess you could barter with it depending on what somebody wants for it or what is the market is currently trading, the trading range. But as a general proposition, it's like one of those non fungible tokens. It's like an idea of money. It's not really money. It's just like somebody's face on something that kind of sort of in some futuristic way pretends to be worth something or to have some financial return. And what since that was the assumption, let's see how did that exactly work out. If I am not mistaken, if one of Trump's faithful, devoted, slavishly devoted followers put, I don't know, $10,000 of their own hard-earned money, retirement money into the account, or if they put 100,000 in there, wouldn't that be really bad? So I tell you what, let's stick with $10,000 just to keep it small. So let's say the average, uh, invest Trump guy says, "Oh, he's a shrewd businessman. I want if I follow him, I'll make money." So Trump says, "Look, I have this, and it's kind of like Jack and Beanstalk. I have this magic thing. Buy it, and you'll be rich." So the guy says, "Okay, I'll buy it." So the guy wires his $10,000 to World Liberty Financial, and World Liberty Financial issues him $10,000 worth of meme coin. So now he's like every other investor. Did my investment go up or did my investment go down? And I tell people, stocks can go in two directions, and only one of them is up. So, how do you think that worked out for that guy? Especially, what if he was, I don't know, a mechanic or a contractor who worked really hard to barely make ends meet. He finally accumulates some more money and he invests it in his chosen savior. So let's see here. He gives Trump, World Liberty Financial, 10,000 buckaroos. And let's see here. What would that $10,000 be worth now? Huh. Did it grow to $20,000? Couldn't be 25 or 30, couldn't it? Couldn't have done that well. And the answer is, of course not. And like Anthony Scaramucci says, if Trump touches it, it turns to dog poop. And Scaramucci was a little more forthright, but you get the message. So the $10,000 investment, excuse me for laughing, is now worth a whopping $364. And so if you'd put $100,000 in that thing, you would now have $3,640. You would have gotten wiped out. Like, what's that, 95% of your investment? Oh, and just out of curiosity, don't you wonder where that offset came from? Because it's a business. You got to add up the assets and liabilities, and supposedly some things come out to zero, and um, but there you are. He's just doing it all over again. The debt and the bankruptcy, 3.8 trillion he added by himself, and then on top of that, I love this. We cannot pay for Medicaid and Medicare. Well, why not? Well, because we got all these fancy weapon systems to pay for, and we got all this debt that I added, and so on and so forth. And like, you worthless piece of human excrement. You know, you, you screwed up. You took advantage of people, and you screwed them. And you know what? You can't be surprised. That's what he is. That's what he has proven himself to be. Think about that. Proven himself to be. We're not just assigning this name to him. We're looking at past behavior and analyzing it. And I think if Republicans had half a brain, they'd take this slightly more seriously. Uh, but the degree to which they've just fallen in line behind this guy is amazing. We are supposed to have three co-equal branches of government, and when two of them get in, when they start colluding, then they tend not to check and balance each other, and calamity ensues, which is, if anybody can describe the Trump presidency as anything other than calamitous, let me know. And we were only talking about Iran a little while ago, and how they have thoroughly beaten us. And Trump looks like such an idiot every time he tries to address the problem, because he's just stupid. And guess what? What do you think those old Iranians want? Particularly the hardline guys. I mean, they got a lot to be ticked about. We can't. We just started bombing them. As a matter of fact, we started when the negotiations were still going on. I mean, Trump has been dishonorable at every turn, and when you act dishonorably, that's generally how you get treated by others. And what Trump, what Trump's team tells him, and the reality of the world are two different things. I mean, his team may be telling him what a great guy he is, but in the meantime, the polls show 30%. The polls show the Iranians love him being there because they can just humiliate him anytime they want. Trump says we'll be the guardians of the strait and we'll charge 20%, and the Iranian guy goes, "Homie, don't play that. You think you can come in here and do that? And how long are you gonna do this for? What's it gonna cost?" And every time he do this, his support gets chipped away a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And wouldn't it be nice if Thursday's speech was actually so insane that there was no argument about what needed to be done here? Um, we just gotta, we have to start paying attention. And I can see where somebody goes to and from work every day. There's not enough time to actually follow politics or get involved or see what's going on. Or how about even read the newspaper? Uh, and the news you get depends on the source you go to. I try to find that, and there are lists of places on the internet that will tell you what somebody's bias is, whether it's left, right, center right, center left. Uh, so it's wild to be able to think that news has been that segmented, but that's a whole marketing demographic thing that I don't really want to get started talking about, because I think the MBAs have done more damage than lawyers will ever do. But anyway, that's the way I feel about it. So the Iranian hardliners, they want to fight. They don't, the great Satan came in and destroyed their country, and they're right. We did do this, uh, just like the Israelis did to Gaza. Even though the Israelis had uh, a fig leaf of cover to do this, you couldn't be surprised when, in a country where a large number of the founders escaped, a death factory in Germany, World War II, the Nazi death camps. So it's generally a bad idea to even insinuate any sort of mass murder, much less this type of mass murder that you committed. I mean, it wasn't like you just came in and shot people. You banged babies, you cut them in half, you did unspeakable things to the men and women. Um, and there's no doubt that you guys paid a huge price. Uh, what will your reaction be? I mean, I would hope that there'd be somebody to come together and say, guys, can't we just, live in some sort of peace? And of course, the answer will be no, because there's money to be and power to be fought over. And if you control the Strait of Hormuz, that's pretty significant. I mean, you'll pretty much never be a debtor country. You probably always make money, and it just it's downright irritating to have this guy dominate the news like he does. Um, but again, we did it, or his voters and enablers did it. Every sane person I know voted Democrat, and they weren't particularly crazy which Democrat it was. They just knew it shouldn't be that guy. And we were told, we were warned, and what happened? Somebody thought they knew better. Oh well, Kamala's really bad. How bad can Trump be? Well, as he's trying to rig the midterms, as he's trying to steal every dollar he can steal, as he's trying to lie at every opportunity, and of course, there's no gash in a reflecting pool. I mean, this is just, and I don't want to use this term a whole lot, but it fits. These are just like trumped up charges against an Olympian on the bicycle. I say it's no different than the KGB. It's no different than the KGB. Doesn't it hurt to say that as an American? We've got uh, a military force in the streets, looking for people, and then maybe even killing them if they feel threatened. Even and keep in mind they might feel threatened, but there's no evidence, no objective evidence to feel that way. I mean, you can say the car was accelerating into me, but as the taillights fade to the distance, it actually shows the car going in the other direction. And these guys lie too. It's just, and an administration takes on the tone from the top, and how surprised can you be to find out that everybody in government lies, or everybody in Trump's government lies? And why? To keep the boss man happy and keep those old buckaroos rolling in. And I gotta tell you, you know, I wouldn't mind campaign finance reform. I wouldn't mind having the government give each candidate, certain amount of dollars, have it all be even. I'd be thrilled with that. Uh, but such as it is, the best term limiter, the best way to keep a decent turnover is to vote. Vote, vote, vote. And I'm going to tell you guys, I've been preaching this. Please take a few minutes and join your local Democrat club. If you can't walk and can't canvass, that's great. Just come, lend your support, hang out with like-minded people, and you'd be surprised how much better you'll feel taking a constructive approach to this. I mean, we've all got a really huge stake in the outcome. We have everything at stake in the outcome. Do we give this guy another 2 years with a free hand, or do we try to rein him in now? And it ain't gonna be easy now because I see them. They're cheating as we speak. Uh, and he's going to claim on Thursday night that John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, the two senators from Georgia, are elected through fraud and therefore should not be seated in the Senate. And this has been litigated. There's a concept in the law called res judicata, and it means a thing decided. And you invoke that so you don't have to waste judicial resources. I mean, courts cost time and money to operate, and they're pretty expensive for a lot of trivial things. Uh, So there we, and like I said, the courts just can't. They not every justice or injustice can get a legal hearing or a proper hearing, and and like I say, when Trump by electing Democrats in 2026, he will know that something ain't right. He'll know that, maybe he's not as well liked as he thought, even though his mind's going to be, geez, look the way I was cheated. And, there's something about the people that have a sense of entitlement. And the fact of the matter is, no, you weren't cheated. You were dealt with fairly like every other American. And oh, by the way, it's really good that 3 years later you finally paid E. Jean Carroll the what $5.5 million and the $600,000 in interest. Next, of course, we want to see that $83 million leave your account. I mean, you made $2 billion, Donald. Come on now. And oh, by the way, I forgot to give a shout out to the 299 people. I'll have to see if it hit 300. To the 299 people that watched my Psycho Donald music video today. And I tell people the only thing worse than my guitar playing is my singing. But it went something like, let's see, how did it go? Oh, yeah. How about this? Duh, duh, Trump can't seem to face up to the facts. Duh, duh, duh. Iran's got us by the old nutsack. His policies set the world on fire. You can't tell him anything. His brain is fried. Psycho Donald, Psycho Donald. Uh, I can just see the costumes coming out for Halloween, Psycho Donald. But anyway, if you like Psycho Donald, take a look at it. It's on our profile page and Instagram at Democracy Radio Network. And, drop us a line. Let us know if you like it. The phone lines are open 949 629 3820. And like I said, we're here in Newport Beach. And I'm going to I'm not going to really go into the ice shooting in Maine and so many. I want to try to talk a little, get down to a little grassroots politics. And I think, of course, there's no such thing as an insignificant election. Okay, nothing. And you know what I think what I take more interest in than anything else are the school board races. I mean, think about this: people running to establish a decent curriculum and to check the books and what have you. And now, keep in mind, if you didn't elect these people, you would probably have a government official dictating the standards. And who knows? In communist countries, guess what? The communists write the books that the teachers are forced to teach you, and you are indoctrinated at a very early age. But we're Americans. We try to do things a little differently. We try to be a little open-minded, and we want to make sure our kids grow up happy and healthy, and are able to use their minds to process and analyze facts and make good decisions. And not the goal of every parent is to have a child that is well rounded and makes good decisions and is happy. And like I said, the school board people are just the front lines. I used to think it was city council as the front lines, and I kind of do, but there's nothing more important than the school board. Not the president, not anything. And in Laguna Beach, there are two women running for school board, and one of them is Dr. Joan Malzewski, and the other one is Shaheen, whose name I always forget. Last name I always forget. But either one of these two would just be excellent. I mean, they care, they get it, they're educated enough to make solid decisions. And it's really hard to come back from a lousy decision. And there's so much better if they're not made. But again, how do people make decisions? They usually make decisions by analyzing facts and applying the rules to the facts and coming up with a decision. But when you have somebody like Trump, who's automatically the most superlative, the est person around, the smartest, fastest, strongest, toughest, whatever it is. When you get somebody like that believes in their own supremacy, they don't take advice from others. And guess what? They don't absorb any sort of data. They go according to their gut, what feels good. And there's an old expression for that. It's called gastronomic justice. And the theory was, if you had a case and had particularly a criminal case and had to go before a judge, you wanted to do it when he had a nice, healthy, happy breakfast and a nice full stomach, and kind of just wants to pass things through. Because what if you get the guy that had a whatever it was, and it had oh, how about this? What if the guy had some sort of an early morning breakfast, and he got that explosive diarrhea thing from the parasite from you know parasites. So if you went before that judge and he's got to deal with explosive diarrhea, I don't think he's going to cut you nearly as many breaks as he would cut you as if when breakfast is a couple of eggs scrambled nice and toast and all this and no explosive diarrhea. So anyway, judges, and that's how judges make their decisions, is they listen to both sides and they kind of look around and test the credibility and see who is more believable, and they go that way. And don't forget, just because you have another side of the argument doesn't mean it's an equal side, which is why one side prosecutes and the other side goes to jail, right? If it was all equal, nobody would go to jail. But we all know people that would rather hang them high, and that's so sad because the country was founded on the premise that it's better to let 100 people go free than to incarcerate one guilty man. And I believe that. And I can tell you that not a whole lot of people do, because they just soon, lock somebody up as not. So think about that. People are being jailed that are innocent. And I think that that Barry Shank and the Innocence Project, God, I hope Mackenzie Bezos, or who, yeah, or was it Mackenzie Bezos or Lorraine Jobs? I hope one of those two, funds these people. I don't have any problem with going through a any given prison and using DNA analysis when it's appropriate to to get innocent people free. Right? I mean, I think that's hugely important. And again, we both know it affects uh, poor uh, poor criminals the most because they have the least funds to get a decent defense attorney. So anyway, I wouldn't. Just a little side note, I wouldn't have any problem with that. If anybody disagrees, give us a call 949-629-3820, and tell me why. Tell me why. So back to Trump, and he makes his decision by his gut. Now, if I'm not mistaken, he's like got the nuclear codes, so he can make that one by his gut. And by the way, does anybody doubt that he wouldn't use one? And 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 the only people that will use that sort of weapon can't conceive of the destruction they'll cause. I mean, as Americans, we still feel bad about World War II, Nagasaki, and Hiroshima. I mean, that was suffering for decades, blood cancers, and God knows what. And as the world shrinks and as geography is just non-existent anymore. I mean, I can chat with Habib in Bangalore about a project just as easily as I can go to call somebody and order a sandwich. It's just that easy. So as the world gets smaller, we need to be a little more considerate. And I tell you, because when Zelensky visited Trump in the White House and Trump yelled at him and Vance threw him out and all this stuff, when they were yelling at Zelensky's answer was something like, you don't understand. We're on the front lines of war. You have these nice big oceans on either side of you. People can't just invade or sneak up. But one day, he says, the war will come to you. And guess what? The Iranians have the perfect, are the perfect example. Is there any sort of thing they wouldn't want to do to the U.S.? I mean, I would really, I think that I actually think the Iranian leadership is more logical than ours. I'm sure they're infinitely smarter than ours. Uh, and that whole notion that the fish or whatever just rots from the head down. Well, guys, that's why you have these shootings and just the callous nature of people downstream from Trump. Is it all rubs off, and he gets off on making people suffer. And can I repeat that one more time? Think about that. He gets off watching people suffer, making people suffer. Now, I am not exactly a biblical scholar, but I think that kind of falls short of the stuff Jesus tried to get across way back when. See, I always thought Jesus was like, oh, I don't know, feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, clothe the naked, uh, you know, heed the oppressed. And I just don't see any of this. I wish I did. I had a caller the other day tell me that he was for Trump. And I said, well, why? And the guy said, well, because he's a Christian. I'm like, huh? Well, how about when they cut food benefits? Does that, is that a good thing? Or do you think Jesus would have said something like, feed the hungry? And I said, and don't forget about those rural hospitals clothing. And don't you think that Jesus would have said, heal the sick? So by this time, I can tell the guys like start to feel really bad. So I wrapped it up as quickly as I could. Uh, but this whole your way and my way is just absurd. We've got to learn to cooperate, even though it could be ages. And I'm telling you, Democrats really aren't in any mood to cooperate with these guys. What have they done that's been a decent that people would consider a decent act? It's either been shameless self promotion, and oh, by the way, i- with all the stuff going on in the world, Trump's wants to redo the columns at the White House. The East Wing is another unfinished project. Iran's an unfinished project. The pool's an unfinished project. I mean, Trump is just the king of unfinished projects because he has the attention span of a pistachio. And the only thing worse than that is when you combine tunnel vision with that. And it's obvious for all to see. Now, if you don't get it, maybe you ought to take another look. But I think we've pretty much convinced that Washington, D.C. is slowly being turned into Trumplandia. And I think the general consensus is there's no place on earth more tasteless than Trumplandia. And there are probably no more people, there are people no more tasteless than Trumplandians. Kind of made that up after Portlandia. Uh, but guys, this is, Iran is, they're winning. They won. They beat us. And, when you do things, my mother, God bless her soul, would always tell me that failing to plan is planning to fail. And do you guys see any notion that anything was planned? Or is this just kind of presidency by whim? And I think we both know, or we all know that guess what? It is presidency by whim. So, and what do you get when you get presidency by whim? You usually get hugely inconsistent results. And I said the guy's just insane. So let's see. Oh, but let's tell you how insane he is. He's been buying up stakes in some private companies, and I don't think he's bought any AI stock yet. But when he does, he's going to announce it. It's going to be like a pump and dump scheme. Oh, I bought this, and so everybody else will pile in, and it'll go up whatever it is, and Trump will sell, and leave everybody else holding the bag with something that's rapidly depreciating. Uh, he's a master of this pump and dump stuff. It's you can see it in his stock manipulation and the cajillion trades that he's made. God only knows what that guy's really worth. And whatever he was worth has gone up astronomically since he's started to figure out how to lead the country. Um, Now, I want to kind of jump over to the UK and to the good old Financial Times. You guys know how much I like the Financial Times. And there was a huge spread in there, and they do this weekly. And the spread read like this: RIP, rest in peace, U.S. State Department. And, the Trump position was it was a very foolish foreign policy establishment. And, and he tore it apart. He didn't. Matter of fact, he tore it up so badly that when he needed negotiators, we didn't have any. Uh, he does things, and the Mayatsi brothers would call this. What do they say? Unencumbered by the mental process, unencumbered by the thought process. And the guy's just 80 years old. The arteriosclerosis, those old arteries in the brain, have started to harden up, and God knows, a diet of McDonald's cheeseburgers and Diet Cokes for years and years and years, combined with no activity, uh, that tends not to encourage a long lifespan. And while we might all want, Trump to pass, I'm always, reluctant to wish people would die because it may be worse. God only knows what happened if you had a younger guy in there like JD Vance, who's clearly has no problem being duplicitous, and he's probably an even more convincing guy to younger people. I mean, he's obviously not 80 years old, and he usually doesn't fumble for his words. He's a pretty eloquent guy who just so happens to be very economical with the truth. I mean, you wouldn't want to use too much truth and make things too honest now, would you, JD? Kind of like that old hillbilly elegy. And now, if you ever want to talk about what parts are made up, feel free to give me a call 949-629-3820. But remember, I'm on Pacific time, so JD, if you're up there, I'll give us a call and just kind of let us know about this hillbilly elegy thing. I'm sure you got some pretty practice answers down pat, but uh, but anyway, we are facing Trump and tampering with Georgia. This speech to Thursday night is going to just be bonkers. I cannot imagine. He's got the Georgia voter rolls on his mind. He's got Ossoff and Warnock on his mind. He's got the Iranians on his mind. And I would wager that that's a few too many things for him to contemplate at any given point in time. I think the fewer things you ask him to do mentally, the more likely it is something will happen. Whether it's good, bad, right, or wrong is an entirely different question. But you can usually invoke the Scaramucci rule, and Scaramucci says if Trump touches it, it usually belongs to dog poop. And I wish I could, go the whole, uh, dog expression, but I kind of don't want to curse or use, foul language on this program. It's just not, it's not what we do. So, guys, it's getting to be almost 1 o'clock. My throat's starting to go. Uh, but but there's is one huge point I want to leave you with, And that's this decision from the judge about the Trump IRS lawsuit. Now, keep in mind, the judge was so angry at this that she referred Trump's lawyers for sanctions. And judges rarely do that. And I mean, this is, if you or I got sanctioned by a court, God only knows. I'm sure these guys will, you know, nothing will happen to. But do you think Todd Blanchard ought to be the Attorney General? Of course not. I still want to know what happened with Ghislaine Maxwell. And I want to know, where's that Trump picture with the 13-year-old girl or however old she was. I mean, and so that just shows basic dishonesty. Yeah, I'll show you my tax returns when I'm under audit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you can show it to us now. No, I can't. Well, yeah, you can. Uh, how about the Epstein files? Well, didn't you get all that? Well, no, we didn't. Oh, well, how about, did I make up for it with the UFO file dump? Oh, well, no, you didn't. That's something else. And after a while, you just get tired of the bull skate. And believe me, if there's ever a human being capable of bull skating an entire country, uh, or the majority of a country, because he did get the majority of votes, uh, which is really sucked because we could usually blame the sorts of things on the electoral college flukes, but this was just, Kamala just got beat, and I can't imagine anybody not being able to see the difference between what happens when you elect this Republican and what happens when you elect this Democrat. Um, and people can say they got fooled and they voted reluctantly for Trump and all this, and that's my favorite thing when people tell me they voted reluctantly for Trump, because that's when I ask them, well, let me ask you this: when you voted reluctantly for Trump, did you like pull the lever halfway out, 3/4 of the way out, maybe just a quarter of the way out? I'm like, how reluctant were you? And of course, they usually get uh, kind of upset when I do that, but you can't have it both ways. You can't say you voted for him and then say, "Oh, well, we did it reluctant. We didn't really mean to." That's kind of like oops. You know, oops is like the worst word in the world, because every time you say oops, you know, I'm gonna say that usually doesn't happen when something good, is going on. Usually, oops is oops. I shouldn't have done that. I wish I hadn't done that. But guys, the one thing I always wish I did is spend a little more time chatting with you guys. But I see when my throat goes so early, I'm lucky to get an hour. So guys, it's Taco Tuesday, and I want everybody to eat up, be healthy. I may well wind up at Taco Me, so we'll see how it goes. We've got a little more work to do here, so anyway, well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, all the ships at sea, thanks for joining us. It's been a blast as always. And come on back tomorrow, noontime Pacific. And tomorrow we have Dan Roca interview. So tune in early for that. And what do they say in the game show thing? Like, come on down or something. Well, they may do come on down. But in the internet world of Abby Kaufman, we do Roger Wilco, over and out.